Hello, a very warm welcome along as always to Sportsbet TV and for joining me, Paul Alster, for your horse racing tips for the coming Saturday, the 27th of March. It's going to be the start of the British Flat season on turf. A lot of us have been looking forward to that. It's at Doncaster. There's also lots of other very good racing to look forward to. Now, in a moment, I'm just going to look back to last week at the Cheltenham Festival, and then I will have 4 tips for you for this weekend from 4 different tracks across Britain and Ireland. Now, if you're new to the service, remember to press the subscribe button just below this screen so you won't miss any of the future bulletins or any updates that I might send out as things move along. And remember to share this video with friends and family, anybody interested in having a bet on horses at bigger than the usual odds that most tipsters tend to put up, because I'm not looking to tip short prices. I'm always looking to tip horses that are close to double figure odds and give us a chance of winning a decent amount for small investments. So here we are looking forward to the start of the flat, but we've just had the greatest show on turf, the Cheltenham Festival, which for us was a really remarkable 4 days. And it started off with a bang. Quite a bang as well, because after our first 3 recommendations on day 1 all ran into a place at odds of 6-1, 6-1 and 16-1 recommended. That was Sharjah finishing second in the champion hurdle. We absolutely hit the target in no uncertain fashion with Jeff Kidder, who returned at 80-1. He won the final race on day 1. And I didn't realize it at the time, because it was also overwhelming and the amazing reaction we got to tipping that winner. But it was actually the longest price winner at the Cheltenham Festival since Norton's Coin won the Gold Cup back in the very early 90s. So the biggest price winner for 30 years at Cheltenham. And if you were here with me at Sportsbet, you would have had a few bob on it. And I know so many of you did. And again, thanks to people from not just Britain and Ireland, but all over the world for their wonderful messages. And I hope you're looking after the money and spending it wisely. Remember, only bet as much as you can afford and no more. Otherwise, you lose the fun in it. Now, that was day 1. On day 2, well, we knew we weren't going to follow up with anything quite as remarkable. There were 6 selections. 4 of them didn't manage to make the places, but 2 did. They were Janica at 33-1. And having recommended to bet 7 places, God, Your Dreams just crept into 7th place at 12-1 recommended. So 2 placing, which meant just a very small loss on the day. On day 3, well, unfortunately, St. Calvados was a non-runner in the Ryanair chase. Lisnagar Oscar fell when going well, I thought, in the Stayers hurdle, and Storm Arising was unplaced. But our other 2 selections, Come On Teddy, he was third at 11-1, and Go Another One, who I suggested you back for the 6 places, held on to finish 6th in his chase, having come round the turn looking like a winner. And that was at 33-1. And the 33-1 place is a very tasty profit as well. So we showed a profit on day 3. And then on day 4, Gold Cup day, the Patriot was a non-runner in the county hurdle. Gowel Road didn't run well in that particular race, but the other 3 did. Frodon ran a wonderful race, I thought, in the Gold Cup. He just wasn't good enough, but I know some of you did bet the each way for 5 places. That's not something I recommended. I set up to 4, so I can't include that as a profit for me, but it might have been for you. And I know some of you did each way doubles and trebles on the 3 that placed. There was Frodon 5th in the Gold Cup. Streets of Doyen ran an absolute cracker, as I said he would in the Albert Bartlett. We recommended him at 20-1. He was back down to something like 9 or 10-1 and finished 3rd. And then Leon Cavallo gave us a really good run for our money in the last race of the meeting, the Martin Pipe, eventually finishing 6th. Again, I suggested up to 5 places, so I can't claim the place money, but I know some of you did. It means that, in summary, overall, if you backed all my selections to a notional £10 each way stake on each one over the Cheltenham Festival, you would have won £974. And that's an amazing profit. And I know a lot of you that were on at the start for day 1 showed a great profit. And remember, that wasn't just a flash in the pan. We've been tipping big price winners over the last 5 or 6 months, including, of course, York Hill at 66 to 1, See You at Midnight, recommended at 20 to 1, and others at 16, including A Wave of the Sea, and plenty of others at 12, 10, and single figures. So this is what we're all about. Now, moving on to Saturday, 4 tips for this weekend. And a heads up as well that I'm going to be tipping a little bit more regularly. We'll be doing a couple of days next weekend with the big meetings there, including at Fairy House. And then, of course, after that, it's the Aintree National fixture. We'll be tipping all 3 days there. The Craven meeting at Newmarket, I'm sure there'll be a few days where I send out some selections. The Scottish National Weekend, the Punchestown Festival, which, to be fair, is going to be more or less a rerun of the Cheltenham Festival because the Irish were all conquering. They were, in all honesty, a different class. And we're going to focus a great deal on the Punchestown Festival. And then there's a Guinness Weekend in early May at HQ. So I'm going to be giving you tips there, but I'm not going to say how many tips each day, because if I don't fancy any, or just there are only 1 or 2 fancies, that's all I'm going to put up. I appreciate that the money you have in your pocket is hard earned, and I'm not trying to party from your cash at all easily. I'll only be recommending horses when I really do fancy them. Remember, to bet or not to bet, that is the question. It's your decision at the end of the day. You can hear what I have to say, and then you decide. Well, let me take you to my first selection on Saturday, which is at Kelso in the border country. It's the 205 race. The forecast is for good ground, although I have to say at the time of this recording, at Friday lunchtime, I see that they're expecting some rain, which will be no bad thing for the horse I fancy in the 205, which is a 3 1/4 mile William Hill handicap hurdle, £35,000, 12 runners. And interestingly, we've got a few horses with some very eye-catching form figures. Sultan's Pride has won 3 of his last form for Julian Bonas, and really in very good form. He's gone up 26 pounds in total. Doyen Breed for Sandy Thompson and Ryan Mania, who have done us so many favours on this service. But we're going to go against them, even though this one has been in very good form as well. He won at Ayr last time out on soft ground. And Christian Williams from South Wales sends Cap de Nord all the way to Kelso. And he's got a solid chance. Interesting switching back to hurdles, having been chasing for a long time. So that might just count against him. And the one I very nearly tipped in this race is a horse trained by a trainer called Thomas Gallagher. And it's Mr. Harp. Mr. Harp has been in very good form. He won at Uttoxeter in December. He was second at Warwick in a good race, and then second in a Grade 2 at Haydock. So he's a horse that's progressing very well. And I'd cite him as the big danger to my selection. And my selection is AGRAPART. AGRAPART, trained by Jane Williams and ridden by her son Chester Williams, who claims £5. Now, AGRAPART's been around for a while. He's a former very smart hurdler, running to a high level over 2 and 3 miles, and especially on soft or heavy ground. But he is a horse who's shown good form on a better surface as well. Remember, he won the Cleve Hurdle back in January 2018. And he is a horse who was 4th in February of last year at Sandown in a Grade 3 handicap hurdle off 150. And he's dropping down the weights, down to 142 now. And when you factor in Chester Williams' claim, and he's a good jockey, he'll take £5 off, taking him down to 137, meaning he's running off £13 lower than a year ago where he was placed in a Grade 3. More recently, he ran at Cheltenham in December and was forced to Come On Teddy, conceding that horse £13. And remember, we tipped Come On Teddy at Cheltenham, and he ran into a place there. So that form is very good. Last time out, he stopped very quickly, did AGRAPART at Exeter, too quickly. And as I've mentioned a few times over the last few months, horses that stop that quickly, it's normally a breathing issue. And it's interesting that he's now going to run in the tongue tie, and with a touch of class about him, I think he's going to go really well. Now, when I went through the form last night, Only one firm had gone up early on this race, and that was William Hill's. They put up 16-1, and I thought that looked a bit tasty. Well, that's gone. There's only the one firm up early, the very slow pricing up this Friday lunchtime, and that is still William Hill, who offer now 10-1. I think he'll probably be bigger, probably 12-1 and more each way, AGRAPART, but I think he's got a big chance. Remember to bet with a bookie. If possible, that's offering 4 places, some of them are. And most importantly, as I always say, bet with a bookmaker that's going to offer you the SP if it proves to be bigger than the price you take. So the first selection Saturday, 205 at Kelso, AGRAPART, probably going to be 10 or 12-1 thereabouts, but with a bookmaker that pays the SP, if it's bigger, that won't matter. And then very soon after that to Newbury, the 220, the 3-mile Veterans Handicap Chase, in which there are 3 last time out winners. Psychedelic Rock for Ian Williams, he's up £3 for a Doncaster success. Dubai Angel, trained by Dr. Richard Newland, he's gone up £10, a winner at Musselburgh. And Tinker's Hill, Tommy, who is trained by Rebecca Curtis, and he was a Hereford winner last time out, he's gone up £7. There's also Vice Virtue and Lord Scoundrel, who was second to Psychedelic Rock, and Cyclop, who's been in very good form and stays all day. He was 4th in the Ida Chase. And there's also a horse called First Figaro, which I think is trained by Venetia Williams. But I'm repeating a selection I gave you 3 weeks ago, which is VALADOM, trained by Richard Hobson and ridden by Paul O'Brien, who's pictured here aboard VALADOM. And we tipped him 3 weeks ago when he ran over 3¼ miles, and he ran a blinder. He led all the way until the last fence when he was headed by Sir Ivan, but he kept on well to be second. That was a 10-1 recommendation each way. He was second there. Now, he's dropping back to 3 miles, which I think is a positive. I think that 3¼ just stretched him, and he's only gone up £2, which is a very pleasant bit of news. He still has his ideal ground, which is a good surface. And what's interesting about this horse, now, I hadn't picked it up actually last time, but it shows when you go back over the form, things can come to your attention that maybe you don't always pick up first time. Now, this horse ran at Newbury 3 weeks ago after an 80-day break, and he ran really well. But when you go back in the form, you note that 4 times this horse has had a break and then won on his second start back, not his first start, his second. Now, when I had a look at this race just a few minutes ago, Friday lunchtime, only one firm were pricing up, and that again was William Hill's, who were brave enough to go up early and just put their head above the parapet. A lot of these bookies are very much like sheep. They only follow the one in front. The days of them thinking independently and having their own courage of convictions is in a great part long gone. But 17-2, the odds on offer with William Hill. I suspect bigger will be available, but that's a bit of a marker, 8.5-1. I suspect 10-1 may come available. And that's for VALADOM, each way at Newbury Saturday in the 220. Now we continue on, and I've got an interesting one here for you at Navan in Ireland. Keep a very close eye on the Irish racing, broadcasting a few times a week on Irish racing. And the 3 o'clock race at Navan is a 1.25 mile, 3-year-old handicap. They're on the turf, of course, 18 runners. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of firms offering 5 places, maybe some offering 6. And of course, 3-year-olds, first time out, many of them this season. And of course, all of them first time out this season on turf. You don't know quite how they're going to train on from 2 to 3. You don't know who's in form. You don't know who's fit. And you need to know which stables have got their horses forward, as we say, for this time of year. So it is a little bit of a guessing game. I'm not going to go through all the runners in the race. I'm just going to tell you that the horse that interests me here is called SASSIFIED. And he's trained by the great Johnny Murtagh, one of the all-time great jockeys, and now already proven to be a fabulous trainer. And young Ben Cohen is on board, a jockey that Johnny Murtagh signed up last season, having seen the potential in him as a rising star apprentice. Now, SASSIFIED is a colt by Celebration. You remember he was the horse that was always chasing the tail of Frankel season after season way back. His dam won over 1.25 miles, And his three half brothers have all won at least 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles. So the pedigree tells you that this horse who ran over 6 and 7 furlongs as a 2-year-old was always going to hopefully do better once he stepped up in trip as a 3-year-old. Now, he had 4 runs as a juvenile, 3 of them on turf and 1 on the all-weather. A promising debut, 6th of 10 at Leopardstown in a maiden in June, beaten just 7 lengths. And then on good ground, as it was on debut, just 10 days later, he finished 3rd back at Leopardstown to a horse called Cadillac of Jesse Harrington's. Now, he was beaten 11 lengths there after being a little bit slow away and making good late headway, staying on. But that form is absolutely red hot because Cadillac went on to win a Group 2, was then 5th in the Dewhurst Stakes Group 1 at Newmarket, and then went on to finish 4th in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. So that is red hot form shown by SASSIFIED on his second start. He then had a 4-month break, came back right at the end of the season in November. I suspect they ran him just to get a 3rd run in and qualify for a handicap mark. It was heavy ground. He hated it. He was 13th of 16. He was slow away and never a factor. And then he ran a few days later at Dundalk over 7 furlongs. Again, towards the rear, a quiet run, shaken up, not stirred, and kept on inside the final furlong. Now, this is a horse, when I saw him last season, I thought to myself, I'd be interested in this horse if he steps up in trip as a 3-year-old. So first time out, here we are on Saturday at Navan. He goes up to 1.25 miles. I'm sure this horse is a lot better than we've seen. The yard have already had a winner on turf. They had a winner at the Curragh just last week. It popped up at 33-1. And so I think that off a handicap mark of just 69, SASSIFIED, assuming he's fit enough to do himself justice, is a sporting each way bet. Now, what about the price? And I've just put on my paper here, dunno. I don't have a clue. Nobody's priced it up. I've had a look at it. Taking aside my view of the horse, that I think he's going to run well, I suspect bookies may put him in at about 12-1, maybe bigger. So I'm sure he'll be double figures. If he isn't, it means there's been good money for him, which in itself is a positive sign. But I suspect he'll be double figures. Make sure if you take a price, you're with one of those bookies that'll pay you the SP if it's bigger, because of course he could drift. So that is SASSIFIED at Navan in the 3 o'clock on Saturday. And then we're going to come on to the big race of the weekend, which is the 3:10 at Doncaster. It is the Unibet Lincoln Handicap on the straight mile, 22 runners. Very often a bit of a lottery, because for the same reason I mentioned at Navan, you don't know how many of the horses are actually at full fitness. And we've also got the issue of the draw, which at Doncaster can often be significant. And we won't know what the effect of the draw is until we've seen races earlier in the day in the Doncaster Mile and in the consolation race, the Silver Mile, which goes off half an hour before the Lincoln itself. So some of you might want to wait to see where is the best part of the course and which horses are likely to be at an advantage. Now, I've given 2 selections here because I wanted one either side of the course to give us a chance, whichever side is has an advantage, if there is an advantage. First of all, what about the market leaders? Well, we've got Godolphin's Eastern World, who picked up a £5 penalty for a win at Meydan in Dubai in February over 9 furlongs. So we know he's coming here fit. He's an improver, but there's no value in this field. 22 runners, a 3-1 shot. So I can't be with him. Now, the other one is Hakiki, who's around a 7-2 chance, trained by John and his son Thady Gosden. This is the first weekend that Thady is also added to the license with John Gosden. So we're seeing this gradual handover from the great John Gosden to his son, just as Towser Gosden handed over to John all those years back. And he's got Benoit de la Sayette riding, who is a young apprentice who's just had 8 winners, but he's already caught everybody's eye by looking like a sort of new Frankie Dettori. And amazingly, Gosden, who doesn't normally use apprentices, has signed up this Benoit de la Sayette, and he's going to claim a valuable £7 on Hakiki, who won 3 from 4 last season, was very impressive on its last start. It could very easily be a group class horse and might blow these out of the water. But again, it might be drawn on the wrong side. things might go wrong. For all he's a great young talent, he's never ridden in a race like this, De La Sayed, so who knows? And 7-2 for me just doesn't look value, even though I fear him greatly. So now to the two selections. And the first one is Brentford Hope, who's trained by the former top jockey Richard Hughes and is the mount of Jamie Spencer. Now, any rain that happens to fall on Navan Doncaster will help this horse. He stays 1.25 miles. He won over that trip on debut as a 2-year-old a couple of seasons ago, after which he was spoken of as a potential Derby horse. He then had a setback and he missed the Derby. He ran a series of decent races until at Haydock towards the back end of last season. He put up a breathtaking performance in heavy ground in a 3-year-old handicap. He cruised with Jamie Spencer just sitting there, not moving throughout the final furlong while the jockey next to him was riding for all he was worth. It was hugely impressive. And Brentford Hope is apparently highly regarded by Hughes. He's got the excellent Jamie Spencer on. He's another who could be a group class horse and make up for the lost time and the disappointment of missing the Derby. He's drawn stall 3, which is over on the far side. 9-1. Offered each way for 5 places with Bet Victor. Ladbrokes also offering 9-1 for 4 places. Many of the others are 17-2 and 8-1. And among the 8-1 firms, Skybet offer 7 places. So do shop around. He's the first of my 2 recommendations, Brentford Hope. I think he could go really well. And then my second, and I suppose if I had to choose between them, he might be my preferred, is Brunch. Brunch is trained by Michael Dodds up in the northeast and the mount of Callum Rodriguez. Michael's a great trainer and we've seen him do so well with sprinters and milers. He's trained them over the jumps as well. Now this horse, Brunch, won first time out at Newcastle last year over 1 mile in a novice stakes. He then went on to win handicaps over 7 furlongs and 1 mile at York. Very competitive races, terrific efforts in July and August of 85 and then 91. Then he was beaten a short head only by Johan over 1 mile at Ayr. That one reopposes on Saturday. And Johan is £7 worse off. He's £7 worse off with Brunch for that short head, and that's significant. He then ran very well indeed behind Ostilio and Kesar in a listed race at Redcar in October, went 3rd, and he was over the top. You know, he'd had enough for the season when he was well beaten on unsuitably heavy ground in November, so you can ignore that on his last start last season. Now, Michael Dodd's already with a winner in recent weeks, can get them ready, and this horse did win first time out last year. He's drawn 15, which is centre to stand side, and I'm hoping Callum Rodriguez, having seen the previous races on the straight mile, will be able to follow wherever he thinks the pace is best, either to go down the centre, or if it looks like the stand side have an advantage, to move with them and go to that side. So I'm hoping the jockey uses his noddle here and really manages to get the horse in the right place. And he's 16-1 each way, and that is drying up. That's with Bet365, that's with Bet Victor and William Hill. And other firms are offering shorter, but maybe for 6 places or even 7 places, so do look around. But I do think Brunch is likely to run a massive race. You do need a bit of luck in running with the draw as well. But those would be my 2 sporting picks for the Lincoln. The first big flat handicap of the 2021 series. That's at Doncaster 310, Brentford Hope and Brunch. So that's my analysis for this weekend. You may put them in your Yankees and things like that. Don't go mad, but I'm hopeful that we'll get a shout from our 4 runners. Hopefully, we'll be able to show a profit again. And remember, if it doesn't pan out this weekend, as I always say, this isn't a sprint. It's a marathon. We're trying to show a profit over the course of the season. So remember to keep your powder dry as well, if necessary. There's so much great racing to come. Of course, the Grand National not far away, the Irish National, Scottish National, the Craven meeting, and of course, the Guineas meeting, amongst others. So a load to look forward to. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and join me again next week, Paul Alster at Sportsbet TV, for more tips from somebody that's been in the game longer than I care to remember.